If you sat in the stalls or the circle in 1928, you were witnessing a collision that would change the trajectory of art forever. Silent cinema had reached a tier of visual sophistication that felt divine, yet standing right next to it was the talkie, a clunky, regressive mess of a technology. This gap defined the era, the distance between the most beautiful filmmaking ever achieved and the mechanical invention threatening to ruin it. 1928 was the precise moment cinema achieved absolute perfection, right before a technological earthquake broke its foundation. Director Carl Theodor Dreyer provided the ultimate example of this visual peak with his film The Passion of Joan of Arc. Dreyer famously built a massive, expensive concrete set modeled on medieval architecture, only to spend the entire film ignoring it. He forbid his actors from wearing any makeup, wanting every pore, every tear, and every twitch of Renee Falconetti's skin to tell the story. His camera became an active participant, using probing, extreme close-ups that broke every rule of traditional film grammar to force the audience directly into Joan's headspace. Silent cinema had successfully evolved into an independent, pure visual poetry that required absolutely no words to function. While Dreyer was capturing the soul, Hollywood was busy trying to capture the voice. In 1928, the first all-talking feature, Lights of New York, hit the screens, and visually, it was a nightmare. Early microphones were not yet directional, meaning they couldn't isolate the speaker's voice from the surrounding room. This limitation meant actors could no longer move. To stay within range, performers had to stand perfectly still and direct their dialogue toward microphones hidden inside flower pots, behind thick curtains, or even inside of phones. In the desperate race to hear the characters, filmmakers sacrificed the ability to psychologically see them. The actors weren't the only ones paralyzed on set. The camera itself was taken prisoner by the new technology. Early sound cameras whirred loudly. To keep that noise off the soundtrack, the camera and operator were locked inside a soundproof wooden booth known as an icebox. This padded box made fluid camera movements impossible, stuck peering through narrow glass. Directors were forced back to the aesthetic of a filmed stage play, static, wide shots without personality. Even the lighting suffered. The dramatic arc lights of the silent era were too noisy for the mics, so studios switched to incandescent bulbs, quiet lamps that produce light via a glowing wire filament. These were flatter and far less expressive. The technological demand for sound forcibly lobotomized the visual language of the medium, trading its dynamic intimacy for theatrical stasis. 1928 presents a strange paradox, the visual mastery of a film that feels modern even a century later, standing right next to the clunky, stagey birth of the sound era. It was as if cinema had learned to walk perfectly, only to be forced back into a stroller the moment it learned how to speak. This ushered in a literal dark age of visual stasis that dominated the early 1930s. The real artistic hurdle of the 20th century lay in breaking the camera out of its padded prison to relearn the visual mastery that was abandoned during the transition to sound. 1928 remains a profound artistic tragedy, a simultaneous birth and funeral that modern cinema spent decades recovering from.